And welcome. I'm Phil McAuliffe. I'm the loneliness guy, and this is Connection Over Coffee. This is a podcast that proudly serves and supports you, a gay man experiencing loneliness, and helps you take steps to getting the authentic connection that you need and deserve. It's also proudly recorded, edited, and uploaded in Canberra, Australia's capital city, on Ngunnawal country, and I humbly acknowledge and pay my respects to Ngunnawal elders past, present, and emerging. I also want to acknowledge and welcome all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples and other First Nations peoples listening. Thank you so much for joining me. Please go make yourself comfortable and I'll go get us some coffees. Hello, YouTube. Lovely to see you for another episode. I have a small confession to make, which I'll get to in just a moment. Although, if you look at the length of this video, you might actually know what it is. Anyway, I'm really glad that you pressed play, glad that you're here. Let's get into the episode. Here you go. This is episode 54 of Connection Over Coffee. We'll soon be joined by Craig Watson in Wellington and Eric Feltes in Los Angeles for a chat about the blog that Craig wrote on being Christian and gay and the loneliness he experienced in reconciling his faith with his sexuality. I'll be introducing them both shortly, but for now, I want to say a few things. I say this in every episode, and I always mean it. You're awesome. It always takes courage to engage with content on loneliness. And if you're coming back for another coffee and a chat with me, or if this is the first time you've pressed play, I want you to know that I'm really proud of you. After the conversation, be sure to check thelonelinessguide.com. There's a link in the show notes that will take you to my services that guide gay men like you to get the soul-nourishing connection that you need and deserve. And the website is also a great place to start if what you're about to hear really resonates with you, if it really speaks to you, and you want to explore your loneliness from being gay and growing up in a religious environment. We're soon going to be joined by Eric and Craig for a chat about the loneliness that Craig felt while wrestling with his faith and sexuality. But I want to say a few things before they join us. I met Craig soon after I came out while I lived in Wellington, which, if you don't know, it's the capital of New Zealand, the world's, coolest little capital. Canberra's pretty cool. But Wellington, is on par. Our conversations that Craig and I had were always special, and I simply loved how ready he was to go into a deep conversation because, deep conversations are my jam because that's where connection actually happens. And I was thrilled when Craig accepted my invitation to write of his experience and appear on the podcast, as I knew that his story would really resonate with you. For his part, Eric is a Los Angeles-based life coach and speaker who helps gay men free themselves from church shame. He does this in the most awesome way. And if you don't follow him on social media, please do, because the way that he does it supports both his clients and actually gives right back to his very vocal and, I'm going to say it, very unchristian haters. And in that kind of Christian mindset, I've got a confession to make. And it does seem ironic given the topic of this episode, right? I got so into our conversation that I forgot to hit record on the visual recording that I'd be using for YouTube. I'll say that it was very early on a Saturday morning for me, and I got so into the conversation that I simply forgot. I'm really sorry. And I'm sorry if you're now joining on YouTube because the visual content isn't there for this episode, and there's no record of how awesome Craig, Eric, and I looked and how we interacted. But if you are joining on YouTube, there's a link in the show notes for you to go and listen to our conversation. And again, I'm sorry, and I'll do better next time. Finally, before we get into the episode, before we get into the conversation, I need to say that this conversation is going to cover some topics that may trigger you, may upset you. I want to make sure at this point that you're feeling strong and ready to have a kind and honest conversation about faith and sexuality. And if you're not feeling up to it now or at any time during our conversation, please press pause and come back once you're ready. Remember, the world needs you, and you are worthy of love and belonging right now, just as you are. I'm really glad you're here. Let's go on, Meg. I'm really glad you're here. Let's go on, Meg. What is that, YouTube? I can't say meet. I'm really glad that you're here. Let's meet Craig and Eric. Again, YouTube, I am really so very sorry that I forgot to press the record button on Zoom here for me to use for this recording. I am really sorry. I promise I'll do better next time. I'd love it if you could still tap the link to listen to the podcast. The link will take you to the website where the podcast is. And you can also listen to it on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, and through a few other podcast hosting services. Again, I'm so sorry. I, ask you to forgive. And I'll see you next time. Thanks so much.